Hey guys, Logan here from Popular Woodworking magazine. You know, there's nowhere in this world that I would rather be than at home in my shop. But a close second is sitting in a cabin in the Northwoods of Minnesota. There's a reason I like that. A, the fishing's great, and B, it's just cozy. The decor usually is ducks, loons, black bears, and stuff like this. Cabin-style furniture. Now this is a different style of furniture than we usually build in our shops. But it's an interesting project. Let's look at some of the details. So this cabin-style furniture usually features really natural type wood on it. We have a slab top with the bark still attached. And going down to the legs, we have sections of logs that have tenons cut on the ends that fit into mortises in the top. Now obviously this style of furniture doesn't follow our standard furniture building things that we do in the shop. But there are a particular set of tools that you can use to make stuff like this. So let me go ahead and get this out of the way, move the bench in, I want to show you those. Now getting started building cabin style furniture is easy with a set of tools from Lumberjack Tools. They're made in Wisconsin and they're super high quality. These come in a couple of different styles. Let me show you those. So first we have the Home series. And that cuts a little bit different shape than the commercial series. So there's two different shapes of tenons and shoulders on here. I'll show you those in a little bit. Going next, we have the Pro series. This is a little bit heavier use. It's just built a little bit heavier duty for commercial use. It's making a lot of furniture. And then we have the Industrial series. And these are for extremely heavy duty use. And they come in a bunch of different sizes. More sizes than the Home and Commercial series, and they even have something like this, which is a fence post staker for creating fence posts. Now, as I mentioned before, each one of these comes in different sizes. The Pro and then the Industrial come in extended sizes versus the Commercial and Home, and every one of these are available individually or in 1, 2, and 3-piece kits in the Home and Commercial, or in the Industrial and Pro that are available in 1, 2, 3, and 5-piece kits. Now if you buy the kit, not only are you getting the different sizes of tenon cutters, you're also getting a set of Forstner bits that match, as well as this 20 log furniture plan book. This is really cool because it gives you some ideas on how to get started building projects, and it really gives you a good foundation for building this type of furniture that you can really expand on once you get comfortable with it. So before we chuck one of these into a drill and start cutting tenons, we have to prep our logs. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and get the log clamp mounted to the bench and show you how I clean up a log. Clamping round objects like log sections on your bench can be a little hard, but Lumberjack Tools does sell these log clamps that help you lock the log down, which that's actually their name, log locks, and they pinch the log in this little V block, and they have a quick action so you can quickly change sizes. Now this smaller one here is sized for logs up to 4.5 inches. The larger one here will actually handle logs up to 8 inches, which is kind of crazy. And with these log locks, they quickly lock down the log so it's not going to move. I do have it attached here to a plywood base, but you could attach it to a bench. Heck, if you were in the timber, you could even screw this thing to a stump and use it that way as well. And the nice thing about it is as you're working on a log, you can release it, roll the log to work on a different section, or reposition it and go to different size logs. Now, to prep our logs before we cut tenons, we need to take the bark off. There's a couple of reasons we want to do this. First, the bark's probably going to come off anyways. As that log dries, the bark and the wood are going to separate from each other, and it's going to peel off. So you might as well get the mess out of the way right away. And also, insects love bark, so we want to get rid of it. And to do that, I'm going to use this draw knife, and we're simply going to just peel away the bark. And we're going to try to get down through that cambium layer and just get down to good solid wood. Now, depending on what species you have, you may find that the bark peels off a little bit easier on some species than others. Especially if you cut the tree down in the spring when the sap's starting to rise, you'll find it's going to come off extremely easy. I have cedar here, and this likes to peel off. It smells great, and they're usually pretty straight. Plus, being a softwood, it's going to cut nicely, but you can use hardwood logs for this as well. So as you're going with the draw knife, the steeper the angle, the more aggressive it's going to cut. So we're really just trying to peel off those layers and get all of that bark gone. There we go. Now you can see that that strips off the bark really easily. There are a couple of things you want to keep in mind as you're selecting logs though. First, something twisty like this guy. You can absolutely use this, but it's going to take a little bit more work as you're cutting the tenons. And we want to avoid stuff like knots. That's end grain coming through the side of the log, and it just ends up being really tough. So try to avoid those as much as possible. Good straight pieces like this are perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and get the bark all off these. Then we'll get a drill in here, and we'll go ahead and cut some tenons. Okay, once you have all the bark removed, now it's time to go into tenon cutting mode. To do that, I'm going to use the home line in a cordless drill. And this is perfect for smaller log sizes like this, probably about up to 1.5 to 2 inches. So to cut the tenon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the cutter at the end of the log, and I'm going to try to be in line with the log. I'm not necessarily worried about being square to the bench. I want to make sure that tenon is going straight on whatever this front section of the log is. I'm going to leave the drill in the high torque mode, which is going to be speed 1, and I'm going to let it cut until it bottoms out. The biggest thing here is make sure it's center, feed it nice and smooth, and let it cut to its full depth. There we go. So the homeowner line makes this kind of rounded shoulder. Let me go ahead and switch over to the commercial line and show you the shape that that one makes. All right, now I've slid the log lock a little bit further to me to make sure I have clearance for this cutter. Now the homeowner series is a radiused shoulder. This one will be a 60-degree tapered shoulder, kind of like a pencil sharpener makes a pencil. So there we go. We have that nice 60-degree tapered shoulder from the commercial cutter, and from the home series, we have that rounded shoulder. Now the ends look a little bit differently because down here we have a little bit of that heartwood showing through, but they both make nice clean tenons. And these work well in hand drills with log sizes probably up to about 2.5 inches. For larger logs though, we need a way to make those safely. So let me show you a different tool from Lumberjack Tools that's going to help you do that. So when you go to a larger cutter and you want to make larger tenons, we have this guy. This is the safety sled. This is a tenon guiding jig that's going to help you cut guided tenons on small and large logs. It holds a drill on a carriage. You lock your log into place in one of the log locks, and then as you turn the drill on, you can feed the tenon cutter straight on the end of the log. Now I've switched out for one of the industrial cutters here. And I'm going to show you a difference between those. With the commercial or the Pro series, when you're cutting the tenon, you have to stop and check the tenon length or just cut until it bottoms out. On the Pro or the Industrial series, you have these sight windows here. That allows you to see the tenon as it's formed. And there are milled half-inch marks that you can use to gauge your depth. Or if you're cutting a bunch of tenons that are the same size, you can use these quick stop pins. You simply drop those in and you position them to create the length of tenon that you'd like, and then you just cut until it bottoms out on the pin. So with this log locked in, I'm going to go ahead and turn the drill on, and I'm going to feed it in with the back handle until it creates a tenon that is whatever length I need. So there we go. Now I can make consistent tenons the same length with the sled. So now let's go ahead and talk about drilling mortises to accept these. Now that we have our tenons cut, which is what we would call these in the woodworking joinery world, some people may call them dowels, but we've formed this tenon on the end of a workpiece, we need to make a matching mortise or a hole. Now if you buy one of the kits from Lumberjack Tools, you're going to get a series of Forstner bits with it. The Forstner bits are designed to match the size of tenon that you're going to make with the tenon cutter. So for this one, I've loaded up the 1.5" Forstner bit, and we're going to drill that into our workpiece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the center, and then I'm going to drill it with a hand drill. Now there's a way to guide these a little bit more accurately, and I'll show you that in a minute, but for most things, this is going to work extremely well. Now one thing I do want to point out is that these tenons are pretty long. In fact, they might be so long that they go through the other side of the workpiece. And that's perfectly valid, and some people like that look. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this about 1 inch deep. Then I'll have to decide if I want to cut this off or maybe leave it a little proud so that joint sticks up a little bit. But I think I'll go ahead and cut it down so it seats nice and fully. Okay, there we go. So now we can see that once I've trimmed those tenons down, they sit nicely in those holes. Now this is the Home series with that radiused shoulder. You can kind of see how it looks there. It kind of scoops into that hole. Now if I take that out and switch that around to that 60-degree tapered off the Commercial series, you can see it's kind of a larger flare, kind of like a sharpened pencil would be. And this is a great look. But there is a way we can get this to seat a little bit deeper. And this is the Countersink tool. This Countersink tool comes with a couple of different bushings on the end, and those freely spin so they're not going to bind up, and they're sized so they match our mortise. Now you can't see where I'm going with this. Once I chuck this in the drill, I can go ahead and run the drill, and as I plunge it down into that mortise, it's going to chamfer around the edge of that hole. And that's going to allow that joint to go together a little bit further. So after we've ran that countersink through, when you seat this in there, you can see that those shoulders pretty much disappear. That chamfer creates room for that 60-degree taper, and that entire joint then seats together nice and tight. Now this is great for drilling smaller holes and holes that are 90 degrees, such as this, which could be the lower stretcher of a chair. Now these are just two example parts, but this lower rail configuration is really common on side tables, chairs, and the like. But what happens when you need to drill a hole that's not at 90 degrees? Well, that's when we bring in the drill sergeant, which is an angled drilling guide. Okay, there we go. So drilling angled holes is easy with the Drill Sergeant Angle Guide. What we have here is we basically have a chuck that holds the drill bit, and on the top side we attach a drill to that chuck. And then that entire carriage slides up and down on these rails, and you can set your angle over here. And you can go anywhere from 90 degrees down to 45 degrees. This hole I just drilled is at 30 degrees, which is a nice angle for a splay leg stool or side table. And of course, we still want a way to hold the log, so the log lock attaches with a steel plate that ties into the Drill Sergeant. So this is a good way to drill angled holes or even 90-degree holes if you're drilling a bunch of them. So now that we've talked about how we make mortises, how we make tenons, and how we fit them together, let's talk about a couple of hints to make your projects really stand out. The first we need to talk about is what type of glue you want to use. Because we are just putting these together, we need a way to secure them. Now you could throw a screw into that joint. That's going to hold it together really well. But for a little bit extra security, I like to use some glue. And because we're doing this with wet wood generally, I like to use a polyurethane glue. This is a moisture activated glue that you're going to apply to the mortise and then put the parts together. The moisture in the wood is going to cause this to foam up. It's going to lock everything together. But because it foams, don't use a ton of it. We just need a little bit. Now the other thing to talk about is what type of finish you want on your project. Now if you're using outdoor wood like a white oak, a cedar, a cypress, or a redwood, you don't really need to add a finish. The wood itself is rot and moisture resistant, and it's going to get a nice gray look after a couple years outside. But if you do want to add a finish, what I would suggest is waiting a couple weeks. Once you get your project assembled, we want that surface moisture to evacuate the wood. And then your finish will stick to it. A nice coat of polyurethane or an outdoor spar varnish will keep it looking good for a long time. So I hope this video answered some questions that you may have had about cabin style furniture or rustic style furniture, or maybe some questions that you didn't know you actually had. So just to recap, if you're looking for something from the home line, or maybe the commercial line, or even the pro or industrial line, Lumberjack Tools has you covered. A couple of things I appreciate about Lumberjack Tools is the fact that they're made in the USA, just north of here in Wisconsin. They have a lifetime warranty, and if you have any questions or problems with your product, they'll answer the phone when you call them. So to take a look at any of these products that I showed you today, or to see what other products they have available, visit their website, lumberjacktools.com. There you'll find all of this stuff in all the sizes and varieties, and other tools to help you with your projects. So thanks for watching. Get in your shop and build something.